Rashtrakuta was a royal dynasty ruling large parts of the Indian subcontinent between the 6th and 10th centuries. The earliest known Rashtrakuta inscription is a 7th century copper plate grind detailing the rule from Manapura, a city in central or West India. Other ruling Rashtrakuta clans from the same period mentioned in inscriptions were the kings of Achalapur and the rulers of Kannauj. Several controversies exist regarding the origin of these early Rashtrakutas, the native home and the language. The Achalapur clan was a feudatory of the Badami Chalukyas, and during the rule of Untitled, it overthrew Chalukya Varman II and went on to build an empire with the Gulbarga region in modern Karnataka as its base. This clan came to be known as the Rashtrakutas of Manapura, rising to power in South India in 753. At the same time, the Pala dynasty of Bengal and the Pratihara dynasty of Malwa were gaining force in eastern and northwestern India respectively. An Arabic text, Silsilar al-Tawarik, called the Rashtrakutas one of the four principal empires of the world. This period, between the 8th and the 10th centuries, saw a tripartite struggle for the resources of the rich Gangetic plains, each of these three empires annexing the seat of power at Kannauj for short periods of time. At the peak, the Rashtrakutas of Manapura ruled a vast empire stretching from the Ganges River and Yamuna River in the north to Cape Comorin in the south. A fruitful time of political expansion, architectural achievements and famous literary contributions. The early kings of this dynasty were influenced by Hinduism and the later kings by Jainism. During the rule, Jain mathematicians and scholars contributed important works in Kannada and Sanskrit. Amoghavasha I, the most famous king of this dynasty, wrote Kavarajamaga, a landmark literary work in the Kannada language. Architecture reached a milestone in the Dravidian style, the finest example of which is seen in the Kailasanath temple at Ellora in modern Maharashtra. Other important contributions are the Kashi Vishwanatha temple and the Jain Narayana temple at Pattadakal in modern Karnataka, both of which are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. History. The origin of the Rashtrakuta dynasty has been a controversial topic of Indian history. These issues pertain to the origin of the earliest ancestors of the Rashtrakutas during the time of Emperor Ashoka in the 2nd century BCE, and their connection between the several Rashtrakuta dynasties that ruled small kingdoms in northern and central India and the Deccan between the 6th and 7th centuries. The relationship of these medieval Rashtrakutas to the most famous later dynasty, the Rashtrakutas of Manapura, who ruled between the 8th and 10th centuries, has also been debated. The sources for Rashtrakuta history include medieval inscriptions, ancient literature in the Pali language, contemporaneous literature in Sanskrit and Kannada, and the notes of the Arab travelers. Theories about the dynastic lineage, the native region, and the ancestral home have been proposed based on information gleaned from inscriptions, royal emblems, the ancient clan names such as Rashtrakuta, epithets, the names of princes and princesses of the dynasty, and clues from relics such as coins. Scholars debate over which ethnic, linguistic groups can claim the early Rashtrakutas. Possibilities include the northwestern ethnic groups of India, the Kannadiga, Reddy, the Maratha, or the tribes from the Punjab region. Scholars, however, concur that the rulers of the imperial dynasty in the 8th to 10th century made the Kannada language as important as Sanskrit. Rashtrakuta inscriptions use both Kannada and Sanskrit, and the rulers encouraged literature in both languages. The earliest existing Kannada literary writings are credited to the court poets and royalty. Though these Rashtrakutas were Kannadigas, they were conversant in a northern Deccan language as well. The heart of the Rashtrakuta Empire included nearly all of Karnataka, Maharashtra and parts of Andhra Pradesh, an area which the Rashtrakutas ruled for over 2 centuries. The Samangad copper plate grant confirms that the feudatory king Untitled, who probably ruled from Achalapur in Bera, defeated the great Carnatic army of Kirtavarman II of Badami in 753 and took control of the northern regions of the Chalukya Empire. He then helped his father-in-law, Pallava king Nandivarman, regain Kanchi from the Chalukyas and defeated the Gaharas of Malwa, and the rulers of Kalinga, Kosala and Srisalam. Untitled successor Krishna I brought major portions of present-day Karnataka and Kingan under his control. During the rule of Dhruva Daravasha, who took control in 780, the kingdom expanded into an empire that encompassed all of the territory between the Kaveri River and central India. He led successful expeditions to Kannauj, the seat of northern Indian power, where he defeated the Gurjara Pratiharas and the Palas of Bengal, gaining him fame and vast booty but not more territory. He also brought the eastern Chalukyas and Gangas of Talakad under his control. According to Alteca and Sen, the Rashtrakutas became a pan-India power during his rule. Expansion. The ascent of Dhruva Daravasha's third son, Govinda III, to the throne heralded an era of success like never before. There is uncertainty about the location of the early capital of the Rashtrakutas at this time. During his rule there was a three-way conflict between the Rashtrakutas, the Palas and the Pratiharas for control over the Gangetic plains. Describing his victories over the Pratihara Emperor Nagabhata II and the Pala Emperor Dharmapala, the Sanjan inscription states the horses of Govinda III drank from the icy waters of the Himalayan streams and his war elephants tasted the sacred waters of the Ganges. His military exploits have been compared to those of Alexander the Great and Arjuna of Mahabharata. Having conquered Kannauj, he travelled south, took firm hold over Gujarat, Kosala, Gangavadi, humbled the Pallavas of Kanchi, installed a ruler of his choice in Vengi and received 2 statues as an act of submission from the king of Ceylon. The Kolas, the Pandyas and the Cheris all paid him tribute. As one historian puts it, the drums of the Deccan were heard from the Himalayan caves to the shores of the Malabar. The Rashtrakutas Empire now spread over the areas from Cape Comoran to Kannauj and from Benares to Bharuch. The successor of Govinda III, Amoghavasha I, made Manyaketa his capital and ruled a large empire. Manyaketa remained the Rashtrakutas' regal capital until the end of the empire. He came to the throne in 814, but it was not until 821 that he had suppressed revolts from feudatories and ministers. Amoghavasha I made peace with the Western Ganga dynasty by giving them his 2 daughters in marriage, and then defeated the invading eastern Chalukyas at Vingavali and assumed the title Varanarajana. His rule was not as militant as that of Govinda III, as he preferred to maintain friendly relations with his neighbors, the Gangas, the eastern Chalukyas and the Pallavas, with whom he also cultivated marital ties. His era was an enriching one for the arts, literature and religion. Widely seen as the most famous of the Rashtrakuta emperors, Amoghavasha I was an accomplished scholar in Kannada and Sanskrit. His Kavirajamaga is considered an important landmark in Kannada poetics, and Prashnotara Ratnamalika in Sanskrit is a writing of high merit and was later translated into the Tibetan language. Because of his religious temperament, his interest in the arts and literature, and his peace-loving nature, he has been compared to the Emperor Ashoka and called Ashoka of the South. During the rule of Krishna II, the empire faced a revolt from the eastern Chalukyas and its size decreased to the area including most of the western Deccan and Gujarat. Krishna II ended the independent status of the Gujarat branch and brought it under direct control from Manyakata. Indra III recovered the dynasty's fortunes in central India by defeating the Paramara and then invaded the Doaba region of the Ganges and Jamuna rivers. He also defeated the dynasty's traditional enemies, the Pratiharas and the Palas, while maintaining his influence over Vengi. The effect of his victories in Kannauj lasted several years according to the 930 copper plate inscription of Emperor Govinda IV. After a succession of weak kings during whose reigns the empire lost control of territories in the north and east, Krishna III, the last great ruler, consolidated the empire so that it stretched from the Narmada River to Kaveri River and included the northern Tamil country while levying tribute on the king of Ceylon. Decline in 972 AD. During the rule of Kottagaram or Gavarsha, the Paramara king Sayakaharsha attacked the empire and plundered Manyakata, the capital of the Rashtrakutas. This seriously undermined the reputation of the Rashtrakuta Empire and consequently led to its downfall. The final decline was sudden as Achalapur II, a feudatory of the Rashtrakuta ruling from Tardavadi province in modern Bijapur district, declared himself independent by taking advantage of this defeat. Indra IV, the last emperor, committed Salakana at Ravana Belagona. With the fall of the Rashtrakutas, the feudatories and related clans in the Deccan and northern India declared independence. The western Chalukyas annexed Manyakata and made it their capital until 1015 and built an impressive empire in the Rashtrakuta heartland during the 11th century. The focus of dominance shifted to the Krishna River, Godavari River Doaba called Vengi. The former feudatories of the Rashtrakutas in western Deccan were brought under control of the Chalukyas, and the hitherto suppressed Kolas of Tanjore became their arch-enemies in the south. In conclusion, the rise of Rashtrakutas of Manyakata had a great impact on India, even on India's north. Suleiman al-Masudi and Ibn Qudadba wrote that their empire was the largest in contemporary India, and Suleiman further called it one among the four great contemporary empires of the world. According to the travelogues of the Arabs al-Masudi and Ibn Qudadba of the 10th century, most of the kings of Hindustan turned their faces towards the Rashtrakuta king while they were praying, and they prostrated themselves before his ambassadors. The Rashtrakuta king was known as the King of Kings, who possessed the mightiest of armies and whose domains extended from Gigant of Sind. Quote, some historians have called these times an age of imperial Kannauj, since the Rashtrakutas successfully captured Kannauj, levied tribute on its rulers and presented themselves as masters of North India. The era could also be called the age of imperial Karnataka. During the political expansion into central and northern India in the 8th to the 10th centuries, the Rashtrakutas of the relatives created several kingdoms that either ruled during the reign of the parent empire or continued to rule for centuries after its fall or came to power much later. Well known among these were the Rashtrakutas of Gujarat, the Ratas of Saundatti in modern Karnataka, the Gathadavalas of Kannauj, the Rashtrakutas of Rajasthan and ruling from Hasty Kundia Hadundi, Datul, Mandore, the Rathors of Dulnop, Rashtrakuta dynasty of Mayuragiri in modern Maharashtra, and Rashtrakutas of Kannauj. Rajadaraja Chola's conquest of the island of Ceylon in the early 11th century CE led to the fall of four kings there. according to historian K. Pillay. One of them, King Madhavaraja of the Jaffna kingdom, was an usurper from the Rashtrakuta dynasty. Administration, inscriptions and other literary records indicate the Rashtrakutas selected the crown prince based on heredity. The crown did not always pass on to the eldest son. Abilities were considered more important than age and chronology of birth, as exemplified by the crowning of Govinda III, who was the third son of King Dhruva Dharavarsha. The most important position under the king was the chief minister, whose position came with 5 insignia commensurate with his position, namely, a flag, a conch, a fan, a white umbrella, a large drum and 5 musical instruments called Panchamahashadas. Under him was the commander, the foreign minister and a prime minister, all of whom were usually associated with one of the feudatory kings and must have held a position in government equivalent to a premier. A Mahasamantha was a feudatory, a higher-ranking regal officer. All cabinet ministers were well-versed in political science and possessed military training. There were cases where women supervised significant areas, as when Revak Animadi, daughter of Amogavarsha I, administered Edath or Vishaya. The kingdom was divided into mandala Rashtras. A Rashtra was ruled by a Rashtrapati, who on occasion was the emperor himself. Amogavarsha I's empire had 16 Rashtras. Under a Rashtra was a Vishaya overseen by a Vishayapati. Trusted ministers sometimes ruled more than a Rashtra. For example, Bankesha, a commander of Amogavarsha I, headed Banavasi 12000, Belvola 300, Puligere 300, Kunduru 500 and Kundarge 70. The suffix designating the number of villages in the territory. Below the Vishaya was the Nadu, looked after by the Nadugodra Nadugavunda. Sometimes there were 2 such officials, one assuming the position through heredity and another appointed centrally. The lowest division was a Grama, a village administered by Gramapathi Prabhu Gavunda. The Rashtrakuta army consisted of large contingents of infantry, horsemen, and elephants. A standing army was always ready for war in a cantonment in the regal capital of Manyakata. Large armies were also maintained by the feudatory kings, who were expected to contribute to the defense of the empire in case of war. Chieftains and all the officials also served as commanders, whose postings were transferable if the need arose. The Rashtrakutas issued coins such as Suvarna, dramas in silver and gold weighing 65 grains, Kalanju weighing 48 grains, Gajanaka weighing 96 grains, Kasu weighing 15 grains, Manjati with 2.5 grains and Akam of 1.25 grain. Economy. The Rashtrakuta economy was sustained by its natural and agricultural produce, its manufacturing revenues and monies gained from its conquests. Cotton was the chief crop of the regions of southern Gujarat, Khandesh and Bera. Miniga, Gujarat, Ujjain, Pathan and Tagora were important centers of textile industry. Muslin cloth were manufactured in Pathan and Warangal. The cotton yarn and cloth was exported from Baroque. White calicos were manufactured in Burhanpur and Beira and exported to Persia, Turkey, Poland, Arabia and Egypt. The Kingan region, ruled by the feudatory Silharis, produced large quantities of betel leaves, coconut and rice, while the lush forests of Mysore, ruled by the feudatory Gangas, produced such woods as sandal, timber, teak and ebony. Incense and perfumes were exported from the ports of Tana and Saimur. The Deccan was rich in minerals, though its soil was not as fertile as that of the Gangetic plains. The copper mines of Kadapa, Bellary, Chanda, Budana, Narsingpur, Ahmednagar, Bijapur and Darwa were an important source of income and played an important role in the the economy. Diamonds were mined in Kadapa, Bellary, Kannauj and Golconda. The capital Manapura and Davagiri were important diamond and jewelry trading centers. The leather industry and tanning flourished in Gujarat and some regions of northern Maharashtra. Mysore with its vast elephant herds was important for the ivory industry. The Rashtrakuta Empire controlled most of the western seaboard of the subcontinent, which facilitated its maritime trade. The Gujarat branch of the empire earned a significant income from the port of Barok, one of the most prominent ports in the world at the time. The empire's chief exports were cotton yarn, cotton cloth, muslins, hides, mats, indigo, incense, perfumes, betel nuts, coconuts, sandal, tea, timber, sesame oil and ivory. Its major imports were pearls, gold, dates from Arabia, slaves, Italian wines, tin, lead, topaz, storax, sweet clover, flint glass, antimony, gold and silver coins, singing boys and girls from other lands. Trading in horses was an important and profitable business, monopolized by the Arabs and some local merchants. The Rashtrakuta government levied a shipping tax of 1 golden gajanaka on all foreign vessels embarking to any other ports and a fee of 1 silver kathana on vessels traveling locally. Artists and craftsmen operated as corporations rather than as individual business. Inscriptions mention guilds of weavers, oilmen, artisans, basket and mat makers and fruit sellers. A Saundati inscription refers to an assemblage of all the people of a district headed by the guilds of the region. Some guilds were considered superior to others, just as some corporations were, and received royal charters determining the powers and privileges. Inscriptions suggest these guilds had their own militia to protect goods in transit and, like village assemblies, they operated banks that lent money to traders and businesses. The government's income came from 5 principal sources: regular taxes, occasional taxes, fines, income taxes, miscellaneous taxes and tributes from feudatories. An emergency tax was imposed occasionally and were applicable when the kingdom was under duress, such as when it faced natural calamities, or was preparing for war or overcoming war's ravages. Income tax included taxes on crown land, wasteland, specific types of trees considered valuable to the economy, mines, salt, treasures unearthed by prospectors. Additionally, customary presents were given to the king or royal officers on such festive occasions as marriage or the birth of a son. The king determined the tax levels based on need and circumstances in the kingdom while ensuring that an undue burden was not placed on the peasants. The landowner or tenant paid a variety of taxes, including land taxes, produce taxes and payment of the overhead for maintenance of the gavunda. Land taxes were varied based on type of land, its produce and situation, and ranged from 8% to 16%. A Banavasi inscription of 941 mentions reassessment of land tax due to the drying up of an old irrigation canal in the region. The land tax may have been as high as 20% to pay for expenses of a military frequently at war. In most of the kingdom, land taxes were paid in goods and services and rarely was cash accepted. A portion of all taxes earned by the government was returned to the villages for maintenance. Taxes were levied on artisans such as potters, sheep herders, weavers, oilmen, shopkeepers, stall owners, brewers and gardeners. Taxes on perishable items such as fish, meat, honey, medicine, fruits and essentials like fuel was as high as 16%. Taxes on salt and minerals were mandatory, although the empire did not claim sole ownership of mines, implying that private mineral prospecting and the quarrying business may have been active. The state claimed all such properties whose deceased legal owner had no immediate family to make an inheritance claim. Other miscellaneous taxes included ferry and house taxes. Only Brahmins and the temple institutions were taxed at a lower rate.